Hola, welcome to episode 29 of Word to Your Mama. I'm Ritz B. Today we have OG Chino. He's for sure family, and I was so excited to talk to him, especially because he was coming back and forth during this time between LA and Colombia. So OG Chino, he was born in South Korea, formative years raised in Colombia, then the remaining of his formative years raised in LA, embraced by the Latinos, you know what I'm saying, the Cholo community. We'll have some amazing pictures to show you all this. And then, via Dallas and NYC, was into the music industry in various ways. Ended up being the tour manager for the X-Ecutioners. Been all around the world, and then we talk about how he ends up coming back to LA and opening one of my favorite restaurants, Escala, which is a Korean Colombian restaurant with a DJ booth and just an incredible vibe. I also want to preface this by saying we recorded this. We had this convo early on, like the first week of April. So that was before the protests, the uprising, the massacres, and everything happening in Colombia. So that's why we didn't discuss that. But in the show notes, I will have links to accounts and organizations to get more information on how to help to donate and help the efforts that are going down in Colombia. So yeah, listen to this amazing story by OG Chino, which I also tried to persuade him to finish his memoirs and get his story optioned for a movie, because this story is incredible and you only get a tidbit here. All right, man, let's get into it. Is this recording? Okay, recording. Chino, thank you so much for doing this. I know you're boning out, right? You're about to go. Are you going back to Colombia or someplace else?
Yeah, I mean, back and forth all the time. So yeah, pretty soon I gotta go back. I'm kind of like lagging right now, but I'm supposed to be there already.
So I'm glad I caught you before your next, going back out and stuff like that. But before we start, I just like to ask everybody, how are you doing? Because I haven't seen you in a long time. I haven't seen you pre-pandemic times.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's been going on.
Good.
How you been?
I've been good. Can't complain. I haven't gotten sick. I've been good. So no.
Yeah.
Nothing bad on my part, so I'm good.
Oh, that's good. Now your people are good, and
everybody's good.
Escala's doing good.
Escala's doing good.
Was that a hard transition during when lockdown happened? Yeah. Hardcore.
Yeah, of course. I mean, applying for the loans and all that stuff. And then thinking you're not gonna get it. You know what I mean? You're not gonna get your loan, so you're already think, am I gonna spend my savings, to keep my business alive? Or you start thinking those things, or is it worth keeping the business or whatever? But luckily, my loan came through at the very last minute, Yeah. So I was able to save the business, and thanks to LA and everybody that comes from all over, thanks for the love and support. We were able to survive. Yeah.
Nice, man. Because we can't lose Escala now. So everyone who's listening, if you're in town, support. If you're not, come through. And we're going to get into Escala. But I just wanted to check on you and see how you're doing personally and, and stuff like that.
Thank you. And how are you? And how's the Bear family?
The Bears, they're good. They're good, hanging in. We're getting a little stir crazy because it's been over a year, but we're out in Palm Springs, so it's been good.
Palm Springs, that's right.
Yeah. So it's been a blessing, kind of in disguise, that we were on lockdown out here. So at least when the shit started and you didn't know what was what, it was all kind of scary and new, it was nice to be out here where it's just kind of always been calm, regardless.
Yeah.
Like the vibe here.
Yeah.
And you probably understand this. I tell when people are like, how is it out there? And I was like, as a creative, you know, as an artist, as a creative that you are as well, you know that when you're in LA or you're in, because you used to live in New York, you know that time of at night, like midnight to 3 a.m, where it's like the vibes close down and you can like really get in the zone.
Yeah.
That's here. But
All
during
day?
the day, it's quiet. Like the vibes are quiet like that here. And then at night, it's even quieter. So it's like this nice, you know, we needed it. We needed that. I mean, that was the whole point of coming out here, because we needed that break. But so
That's good.
to start it off, I wanted to because I don't, you know, we know each other through Raka. You know, he's officially my husband, but I hate saying that word. I've said it on here many times that when I say it, the Rock and I say it to each other like a diss. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'll be like something, husband, and he'll be like, whatever, wife. And I'll be like, ugh. Like, you know what I mean? Even though it's true, it's weird. But like, you know, I know you through that, but I don't know you that well. I know some of your story because it's a fascinating story, and I'm sure there's like so much more that, you know, we probably won't even be able to get into. But, you know, I know you were born in Colombia, and I wanted to find out.
I was born in Korea. I was born in South Korea. But Colombia when I was about a year and a half old.
Okay. So you're born in South Korea and then Colombia.
Yeah.
So, and then till you're about 10 in
till
Colombia?
About, 10, yeah, exactly. I turned 11 when I got here, so 10 and a half, I don't know.
So how was it? Like, how was it growing up those formative years? Because those are some crazy formative years in Colombia for you.
Oh, it's beautiful, you know. Strange because, well, I didn't know it was strange until later, you know. You know, of course, as a kid, I'm not aware that it was strange, but being the only Asian kids at that time in their world where they've never seen an Asian kid before, we made everybody like totally flip out, you know, like the kids at school. I would start making fun of us, start stretching their eyes out at us. But I always tell everybody that it wasn't racist. You know what I mean? It was almost like they look funny. They were never seen Asians before, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at them for that because they're like innocent, you know?
Yeah.
And then once we got to know everyone, and even though we dealt with that all through our years in Colombia, being in public, people are always making fun of us. Having Colombian friends and knowing Colombian families, we know what Colombians are like, and that's why we were able to look past that and know that it wasn't a racist thing. So for us, it was a beautiful time, you know, good friends. You know, at first we were really kind of struggling when we first got there. But like later on, my father was doing well, like as a diplomat or whatever. So we did get to live, you know, at least some years in, you know, like having a kind of like a privileged life.
Yeah.
You know, like going to the ambassador's house and playing with their kids, and, you know.
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, it was I can't say anything bad about those times, you know. I can't say anything bad about those times, and that's why I have so much love towards Colombia now, because I had such a good childhood there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And did you, because you guys went when you were 1, was it Spanish and English, but Korean in the home, or how did that dynamic work out with all the languages?
No, there was no English at all, only Korean in the home. My mom says that I spoke like really good Korean, like by age 2, 3, like by 3, I was speaking pretty fluent in Korean. Um, and I still remember some of my baby Korean, you know. But Spanish was probably like the first language, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the first real language I learned that wasn't like baby language, you know, like, and our parents tried really hard to keep us Korean and teach us Korean and things like that. And but you know, it's tough when there's no Koreans there. There was only a few families there,
Oh, so there was
and we only
more, a
saw
little bit.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
You know, of course, the other people that were there for, you know, to work for the embassy, they brought their families. So we got together like on the weekends at the Korean embassy, and they had Korean lessons,
Ah.
you know, for us kids. But all of us lived in different neighborhoods. We all had our friends, Colombian friends, back in our neighborhood. So we're like, I don't think anybody wanted to be there. We all hated being there. We're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of here and go play with my friends in the neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there wasn't really too much like Korean unity, like outside of the embassy gatherings. You know?
Ah, got it. So pretty much most just Spanish for you,
Spanish, yeah.
just Spanish,
And
and
then I would say like my brother and I, who went there ahead of my sisters, there's 4 of us. My brother and I were taken to Colombia first. So my sisters came a couple years later, a few years later. By the time my sisters came to Colombia, my brother and I were already speaking Spanish to each other as little kids. And then we would make fun of our sisters in Spanish because they only spoke Korean, you know? So that went on for a while. Yeah. Yeah. So Spanish was like the first real language for me. Yeah.
and then so you said till about like 10, 11, and then you got to LA. The whole family, or
No, it's weird. It was at first like just to test the waters. It was my mom, my brother, and I again, and my sisters got left behind. Maybe it was a Korean thing, like boys first, and the girls got left behind. But my brother and I and my mom, and we stayed at a motel in Culver City for 2 weeks. And during that time, my mom was kind of like looking at apartments. We're walking around looking, trying to find a place to live. She couldn't speak a lick of English, so you could imagine how tough it was for her.
I bet.
And you know, it was Culver City, like Sepulveda off of Jefferson. So when we walked too far off, you know, neighborhoods got kind of hoodie and stuff sometimes. This was 1977.
Oh yeah.
And then through her friends, we found a place in Carson, which wasn't, I mean, it was a nice neighborhood, but right across the park was like the projects. You know, and then we lived in Carson for like 3 months, just my brother and I and my mom. And that was, I guess, just to test the water, see if we could settle down here or whatever. And then we went back to Colombia for like 2 months just to pack everything up. And then that's when all of us came here, sisters. All of us, meaning me and my siblings. My parents, my mom came here to help us get settled down, basically. And then she had to go back to take care of my father never left. So she would go back and forth. So that was the pattern, you know, and yeah, I think, it's odd. A lot of people are like, wow, how do you just send your kid somewhere at that age? My older sister was only 16, going like 17 at the time, going on 17. So it was like, 16, 14, 12, and 10, you know, that's our ages. And living on our own for a lot of that time, most of the time, you know? So people think that's strange, but I think the Korean mentality at that time was like, you know, our kids are in America. It's great, you know, like they're studying in America. But immigrant families don't know American culture beyond what they see, you know, on TV or what they hear about. So they probably thought America was all great and safe,
but it was not.
You know, they didn't think. They didn't think about the things that we might have got into, and did get into.
Yeah, which I want to get into because that was like one of the fascinating things. Because I think I learned more about you because I think you were helping Dilated do
Uh-huh.
something like negotiate something for, I don't know, South America or Latin
Yeah.
America. And
Right.
Rocco's like, I know how to, I'm reading this, because he has a
Hmm.
little bit of Spanish. He's like, so I just want to make sure that I'm reading this and it I'm, deciphering it correctly, that this is what it says. And
Yeah.
he's like, I go, who wrote it to you? He's like, oh, Chino. And I was like, what? And I was reading it because I can't write like you wrote, like business, Spanish, like on that level. I was like, oh shit. And I was like, what? And I was like, what? I was like, how does he? And he like was telling me stories, and he was like, oh, he's like, you don't know? I was like, I don't. So then he started sending me those amazing. I love these pictures so much of you like choloed out with the chola, like with your homegirl like
Yeah.
I need to know all of that. Like, how did that start? How did that
Yeah.
even start for you?
Oh man, it started super early, like that's why I say, wow, what America does to you, like you come here a good kid, super innocent, I come from the land of cocaine and marijuana, right?
Right?
And then I never touched any drug or even seen it over there. And then I come here and, by age 12, I'm smoking weed. I'm dressed like a cholo, and that's what America does to you. But yeah, it's, I don't know. It's weird. It was sort of like automatic. I came and clicked with the Latino kids because I came from a Latino country. And
Yeah.
I speak Spanish. And I have no idea what being a kid in America is supposed to be like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So this was
So
like,
I'm
oh,
just
this
kind
is
of,
what it is. This is how
yeah,
it is.
yeah. And then I'm in ESL. So ESL is like, like a separate ward in jail. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
for sure.
we don't get to know the American kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm only knowing what the ESL Latino kids are doing. And for us at that time, it was a combination of many things, right? It was a combination of our parents not being at home, they're always working. So we're all latchkey kids. So we were like, when school was over, we're the only ones still lingering around and, and then American culture, what was going on at the time. Being in a gang in the 70s was hot. Like
Yeah.
that was like, it was like hip hop,
Yeah.
It was like, that was the thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So a combination of those two things, I think, made us get into that. And some of my friends already had family, like cousins, older cousins that would come around, the older guys that would come around and in cars, they used to pick us up in 7th grade and show us, that kind of lifestyle, probably like grooming us, you know
Yeah,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
Like, so yeah, so it was kind of like, oh, I thought that was just, what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I didn't think that it was, I knew it was bad. I knew that it was, we weren't doing the right thing, but I didn't really know of any other choices. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as I didn't have any other friends except those friends.
Like it was kind of like organically happened. Like boom, speaking Spanish, ESL. Oh, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing together right now?
Right. And on top of that, my mom was working in the sweatshops in downtown on 8th and Broadway. So sometimes on the weekends I would go with her, and then just roam around Broadway all day until she got out of work at 5. So hanging out, walking up and down Broadway, which was nothing but cholos during that time from every neighborhood in LA. I was like, wow, that's sharp. They look cool, because you would see 30 or 40 of them hanging out, and then every store you walked into on Broadway sold Dickies, and, so it just became my style, like, like since then. Yeah.
And was there any resistance, like maybe on site, like at first, were they like, Chino,
No.
like they were just always embraced you and always took you in.
Always,
Never had
always.
a. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Almost the opposite. Almost the opposite. Almost like the different groups of kids like wanted me to hang out with them. Almost like, oh, we want to have like, it's like novelty. Yeah, we got the Asian guy with us. That's no, never.
Oh, that's amazing.
Never.
So they
In
just
fact, it was
embraced
almost
you.
like I amused them, They were like, oh, you speak Spanish, say something in Spanish. So there's always like, oh, I get put on the spot, I gotta say something in Spanish, No, never.
So those times, right? So did you go to college and then, or what happened in between those times? And then how did you get into like your music stuff and then like moving to New York? Like what was that transition?
Well, hip hop, like when I was always like, well, people, I guess people should know that gangbangers are really into music and art.
Please believe it. Please believe it.
You know what I mean? Like when we ditched school, we drew fake tattoos on each other's backs while the boombox was on. It was like, that's what we did. We loved drawing and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was always the music head. Like whoever I was hanging out with, I got known as the guy that brought out the boombox. Because I was I was like a music fanatic, like before hip hop, I was taping funk songs, I was really into funk.
Yeah.
So so that's why I think when hip hop came out, like first you start hearing Rapper's Delight and then Grandmaster Flash and those songs, and we really don't know that it's a different culture, to us it's still kind of like funk, it's still black music.
Yeah.
But once I start finding out the hip hop culture, like seeing things that came on PBS at the time, they would show things like Star Wars on PBS back in '83. I started seeing like, whoa, that's the graffiti that I've seen somewhere, but I couldn't place it. But I know now I could place it. I'm like, oh, that's New York, and it's because of hip hop they're doing that kind of graffiti. And I was like so fascinated by hip hop, got so into it that there was a time where it kind of overlapped. Like I was in high school when I started finding out about graffiti and hip hop and getting into it. But I was still more in the gang thing, But I was trying to get out of it at the same time because I knew that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted, like a future, and all of us did at the time, most gangbangers that went to school during that time all kind of wanted a future. You know what I'm saying? The crazy ones that weren't at school, they were already out on the street. But if you were in high school and even getting kicked out from school to school, you kind of really wanted something, you were expecting something better in the future. That wasn't like our life, you know what I mean? So all of us, I think, were kind of going through the same thing, even though like some of them were like really hardcore cholos, but they all kind of were trying to go to school and, like trying to see if there was something else,
Yeah.
So I think I was going through that part where I wasn't dressing like a cholo and, but still hanging out with them.
Yeah.
So it was obvious, like, so I was still get involved in little stuff here and there. But I made it, I made it through 4 different high schools in LA, right? I went through all 4 high schools, didn't get to graduate on stage, which sucks, I regret that. But I made it, and then I made it into art school. And this was '84. And that's when hip hop was more, okay, this is hip. That's when I knew this is hip hop, right?
Yeah.
That's when I got so into that it just took me away to another,
Yeah.
Like from '84 on, I think that's when I just got into hip hop.
It was like hip hop, boom.
Yeah. Like anywhere someone was breakdancing or doing graffiti, I was watching. Sometimes I would see some of my gangbanger homies at those breakdance circles like 2 years later.
Oh, wow.
and like, wow, you're breakdancing now, and, like watching, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so hip hop did a lot, I think, for LA youth at the time,
for sure.
Yeah.
And then like
So yeah,
seeing being exposed, like you said, like on PBS and then with MTV and Yo MTV, like being able to see hip hop,
yeah,
the origins, and be exposed to that.
right,
Also, the graph from over there, like we
exactly.
didn't have internet over that
Like,
time, kids. So it
no,
was like
like,
where
no,
we can
like,
get it.
you don't understand. Like right now, I'm gonna be 54 this year.
Wow.
I still have newspaper clippings of like when Run DMC was in LA, when the Fat Boys were first written about in the LA Times, because back then it was weird. It was like, whoa, I can't believe they're talking about this in the LA Times. Like
Yeah.
for media to cover hip hop
Huge.
wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, it was like a rare moment. So I would clip those magazine articles and actually keep almost like a scrapbook, because I thought those were like, it was just weird. Like, wow, I can't believe these guys made it to People magazine or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's just like whatever. But yeah, back then that's how rare hip hop was. Like anything that was rap related on TV, if it was a commercial, you would try to record it. You wanted to keep it because it was just,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I was thinking, like, I have this like other like show on this show where it's me and my relative, and she's Black, and we talk about our time in the 80s growing up and hip hop, and when we were exposed to like the East Coast stuff, and like how at that time West Coast hip hop was just so different, you know what I'm saying? And I liked it both, but we really love like the East Coast stuff, and like being exposed to that and how that just impacted, like it just we're like in a big age bracket, similar age bracket, and I think though we're like in the golden times of hip hop where you saw it, where it was like something new, something talking about shit we could relate to. I always say this. In the 80s was about excess and a bunch of stuff. And I love new wave, and I love, the stuff happening on the pop level. But it didn't relate to my story, and I couldn't see people that kind of looked like me or whatever. But then hip hop came around when it first started, and it was talking about shit happening in the streets, shit, happening to people, brown and Black people. And I really gravitated towards that, and the elements, and learning about the elements of hip hop, and everyone like, we always talk about how we all, at that time, we always try to figure out how we fit in. Like, oh, can I break? Like, can I do graph? Like, can I, beatbox, MC? Like, how, So what you were into it did you try any of the other elements of hip hop, or were you like, how am I going to fit into this?
No, the first thing I tried was graffiti. So, because I did a lot of Cholo graffiti. So graffiti was my thing way before,
Yeah.
So when I started seeing New York graffiti, I would try to imitate it, and I would write like group names like Run DMC and Houdini and Fat Boys in graffiti letters, and I kept those. Yeah, I still have them.
That's amazing.
So those were like my attempts at graffiti, and then I picked up a can a few times, not because I didn't think like I knew what I was doing, but I tried to come up with a name.
What was that name? What was that name?
It was Snow. I don't know why. I think it just came up. It just came up at the moment. I don't know. I'll write Snow. So I wrote Snow like in like wannabe New York letters around my neighborhood. But that's as far as I went with the graffiti.
Yeah.
So no, I can't say I became a graffiti writer from wanting to get into hip hop. I think I was one of those people, like most of us, that didn't feel like we had to be good at any of those things to be part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was a fan. I collected records. So to me, just listening to hip hop and knowing it, just having knowledge of hip hop and all these groups that nobody knew about, for me, I was like, I'm on top of everybody. You know what I mean? Like whether you know how to rap or DJ or whatever, I know more about New York hip hop than you do. You know?
Yes.
So I felt hip hop. Like
Yeah.
I didn't feel a need to like, and then later on, just because I had so many records and my good friend Motivate, he was our neighborhood DJ who went on to be Black Eyed Peas DJ and producer. He was the first one that, we went to go visit him and he had turntables at home. And I knew at that point what hip hop was. This was 83, 84. And then he said, hey, you want me to make you a mixtape? I was like, yeah, that was my first mixtape. And he said, what do you want? You want some mixing and some scratching? I said, yeah, I want all that stuff. And then, that's when I started really getting into hip hop, and then with watching him DJ and having records already, I was like, oh, I want to do what he does, So a couple of years later, I got some turntables and, that's how it happened.
And then when did you move from LA to New York?
Oh, that happened later. That happened in 96.
In 96.
96. So from 86 to 96, well, 86 was when I got my first pair of turntables, And those weren't 1200s. It was a Fisher turntable with a pyramid mixer or something else, You put a bunch of layers of plastic on it so you could rewind the record. But I was a record fanatic and a hip hop fanatic. I opened a record store in 88. We started working on it in 87 and opened it in 88. In the hood, in the Crenshaw district, like Slauson and off of Crenshaw, West Boulevard. So that was kind of what got me in the industry. That was my foot in the door. By that time I had dropped out of art school, so no degree. I had no career path.
Yeah.
So opening a small business was let me try this to see if it, I could make something happen. It didn't happen. It was a big flop, but it made a name. It at that time, record labels in New York were scrambling to find retailers everywhere, to be able to sell the product. So labels like Tommy Boy and, all these hip hop labels in New York, when they found out about my store and that I concentrated in hip hop, they took care of me, So it was through that I started meeting people, networking, and met Mike Nardone, KXLU.
Yep.
He walked into my store, which was rare because, we're on Slauson in South Central. You don't see a white dude just walk in picking out rap records. So we started talking. He told me that he does a radio show, and I was like, oh, let me sponsor it. And so we became good. I started going to the radio show a lot, and he's the one that kind of introduced me. He's the one that recommended me to get interviewed for Rick Rubin's label, Def American, when he first came out, So I started there as an intern. By that time, the record store out of business. I was working at a used CD store, all sad that I had my own business, and now I'm stocking CDs at someone else's store. But during that time was when Nardone was came through for me, and that turned into a job, my first industry job. And I would say within the year, because there was no one else doing promotions at the label, they gave me that title, National Rap Promotions Director or whatever. So, it was a good feeling for a while.
And so that started you into the industry. That was your gateway.
That started me in the industry, right? And that was 91 when I got the job. And it was 91 to 94, 95. It lasted a few years. Once you're working at a record label, you know that working at a record company is not what you think,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a lot of politics. It's just not what I was thinking it would be,
Yeah, it's usually romanticized, but Like
Yeah.
for those of us who got to
I
work in the
think it
industry.
showed. Yeah, so I think my bosses kind of it showed. It showed that I was just not into it. It showed in my work. I was, and in bad moods and stuff too. Like I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had to let me go. They had to let me go, and then do I go back? Do I work at another record company? What do I do now? So I'm like back to zero again, and
Staying competitive in these dynamic times means having the right technology at work for your small or medium-sized business. Whether your goal is to grow, downsize, or modernize, Panoply BPO provides the right combination of tools, support, and affordability necessary to make it a reality. Visit panoplybpo.com. That's PANOPLYBPO.com to schedule your no obligation consultation today. Mention WTYM and get your 13th month of service for free. PanoplyBPO.com. There is a better way.
After that, I got a little job in Dallas, which is weird. But yeah, because I had no work and no money, I ended up going to Dallas in '95. Little job that didn't last long. It's a lot, a lot of detail to that, but I'm not gonna get into that.
Okay.
But anyway, I spent a good 2 years in Dallas. And I always mention Dallas because to me, it's like those 2 years were just as big for me as my years in LA, my years in Colombia and New York. Those 2 years, those friends I made in those 2 years, I still consider family,
Yeah.
But Dallas kind of gave me this boost because I was there and nothing to do. So I started kind of, selling weed, just kind of surviving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was doing good surviving. So it kind of became almost like a playground, like I'm chilling every day. So I started doing graffiti. I met another kid that does graffiti. We started doing a lot of graffiti, and we kind of brought up the art scene in the mid '90s for street art there. Like they put us in the Dallas newspapers, and we made the documentaries, and so that's why I think Dallas for me is like really important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as far as like my years in Dallas. And then from Dallas, I moved on to New York. I didn't want to come back to LA. And that's what, from Dallas, Dallas is like the time of my life when you realize that again, you're at zero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm 29 years old in Dallas, and I'm looking at my life now like I'm about to be 30, and I'm actually just here just selling weed. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And what else am I gonna do? I don't have a degree. I don't qualify for any job. And when I was there, I actually tried. I would look at the classifieds and, they need a design guy. But I would go and they would look at my drawings and be like, well, you're good, but where's your degree? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, what am I gonna do? The only option I had was the hip hop option, So I'm calling my friends in New York, like, hey, I'm thinking of moving to New York. Oh, one of my friends, Peter Kang, was working at Relativity at the time. He's the one that signed Common. He was actually managing Kanye at the time, but Kanye wasn't signed. Kanye was a demo tape. And he had me actually working on Kanye's logo at the time, before Kanye fired him. But anyway, it was Peter that said, oh, just move here, we got you.
Yeah.
He was working with DJ Honda, a lot of different artists. So, it was like, okay, I know I got a little bit of work. It was still a struggle. It wasn't enough to pay my rent. So, yeah, I kind of lived that romantic, struggling artist life in New York.
Yeah.
That I always kind of in the back of my head, it's like, oh, yeah, I want to live like that, like looking at movies. It wasn't that romantic though. But yeah, that like for the first couple of years, it was tough. But once Peter Kang started managing the X-Ecutioners, the DJ crew, and his hands were full already with other artists, you know, he had me start kind of taking over, you know, touring with X-Ecutioners and traveling with them and all that. So I think my good years were those years, you know,
Yeah.
the good years were like the Executioners years. That's when I wasn't worried about rent too much. And
Nice. And like on tour, right? Were you tour
on
manager?
tour, like, you know, yeah, you know, you get to see the world for free, you know, it's,
Yeah, that's not
yeah.
too shabby. That's really good.
Yeah.
There's a section of the show where we do questions and comments from the audience, and you just answered one of the questions from Raka. He was asking to tell the story of how you ended up working with the Executioner. So we got that. So let me start off with some, you know, now that we got that, there's a couple of questions that I think will continue the path from where you're at in your story. So the first one is, what was the most memorable tour that you were on? And this is from your long-haired friend, B. Kim, Brian Kim.
The most memorable. Wow. I think they were all super memorable. But I would say the one I think about the most when I think back is year 2000 with Souls of Mischief.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was that domestic or world or?
Domestic. No, that was domestic. But that was our first long tour. Like it was almost 2 months on the bus. And I couldn't believe it when Souls told me that was their first time touring on an actual tour bus because they had been around so long already.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was our first time meeting them. A crowded bus, but by the time that tour was over, boy, we were like family. It was like, we always talked about it afterwards. Executioners and I were like, man, that was the best tour. Was with Hyro, you know, and because they're like the coolest, kindest guys. Yeah, and we had plenty of adventures, you know. Like,
oh, I bet I can't even imagine.
Shout out to A+, but yeah, A+. Oh, yeah, a lot of things on the road, a lot of, you know.
That's amazing. Okay, this one is not really a question, but I'll read it to you. It says, oh, Chino, well, I don't have a question, but I would like to say that I love Escala. It's a true representation of who he is and the cultures that he's been surrounded by. From the cuisine to the vibes and interior, it's truly a unique place in LA. And I've met so many cool people, spent some memorable moments in my life there, from birthdays to reunions. So thanks to Chino for creating one of the coolest places in LA to hang out with friends, enjoy good food and drinks, and of course for always taking good care of his friends in every way. That's from our girl Maricel. You know, I reached out to her because I just talked to her for the show, and so she, you know, I was like, "You got a question or comment?" She's like, "Let me just, you know, give love." And
oh, thank you, that's so sweet.
So her mentioning that, and we mentioned a little bit. How did it? So you go on tour, you're with, you know, in the music industry with all these people, live in New York, and then you come back. How does it, did you always have an idea for Escala? Like, where did that come from? Like, you're just a man, a creative man with so many hats.
It came because, I think I consider myself very lucky because I think I keep hitting bottom. I don't mean bottom like I'm on drugs or anything like that, but bottom meaning that I end up at ground zero again. Over and over in my life, and it might happen again, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, after Executioners broke up. You know, Rock Raider passed away, rest in peace. That happened later. They all went on to do their thing successfully, but the music industry had changed by that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I wanted to continue doing management and I'm still, you know, helping artists from our era, helping artists from our era because I love them and I'm a big fan, and I became friends with many of them. That's what I found joy in, like if I could get Large Professor on a project, for me, that's like a big deal because I remember listening to Large Professor, not knowing who he was, right?
Yeah.
And being a big fan. And the fact that I'm doing those things meant a lot to me, but it came to an end, or it came to a big, slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Even trying to help Raka, who I love so much as a friend, and knowing him since before his career, even trying to help him out and finding so many obstacles.
Yeah.
Because the hip hop was our hip hop. You know what I'm saying? At a time when the youth is not paying homage to that, they're not trying to learn about who came before them. Our old school pioneers are dissing the youth. They're not trying to embrace them either.
Yeah.
So it's like a big gap,
Mm-hmm.
And then I found myself lost in that gap that I don't qualify to work in the hip hop industry anymore.
Yeah.
At my age, I can't go back to a record company and ask for an A&R job, or, they're looking for the young, fresh guys that are looking for the young, fresh talent, So what do I do? So I'm in New York again with no work. My rent's going up like crazy, And so what do I do? I'm again at zero. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life. And that's when I started going harder on my own artwork. I was like, well, I've always managed other people. Let me manage me and do my artwork or whatever. And that's why I was coming to LA more, because I was thinking the art scene is more here. Let me try to, and thanks to you, people like Chaz noticed me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that I'm somewhere in art now, but to me, that's success already.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've never had an art show for myself, but my idol knows who I am.
And that's
you know what I'm
major.
saying?
Yeah, that's success for sure.
And he gives me props for my art. And he pushed when I see him, he's like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And thank you to you.
No problem, man. Like I was like, you guys should know, and to have him come to your place and just hype you up. Like good people should know good people, So
those moments were kind of making me feel more confident about, okay, maybe I could have an art career. But during this time, my sister, who's always been like kind of like my second mom, because like I said, we grew up on our own. So my oldest sister was the one that picked me up when I got arrested, and she was like my mom, right?
Yeah.
Even though we only have a 6-year difference. But when she sees me at zero again, she's like, okay, I'm gonna hook you up with my boy, who has that space, the Escala space. But his bar was going out of business.
Mm.
So he wanted to basically partner up with somebody to bring something else. And he saw that Koreatown wasn't Koreatown anymore. He's an old school Koreatown guy, OG K-Town, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he lived that life in K-Town, and he knows that that's over. So he knows he needs to bring somebody that's not, the Korean,
Yeah. He saw the evolution happening.
Yeah, that's why my sister said, oh, talk to my brother. Because I was already like, doing events in New York or whatever. Like, and that's how Escala happened. But it happened because I saw the bar. I didn't have the money to start a business on my own, but boom, here I got someone that's helping me invest. I got my sister helping me invest. So it's safe.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I could give up New York for this, which was sad, giving up New York was sad.
I bet.
But I'm coming back to my old neighborhood, Koreatown is where I grew up at, so it's something brought me back here, like things in life sometimes happen because they're meant to be.
Yeah. Like it had to be the right thing. And it seemed like this was the right thing.
But the thing is that Escala blessed me with more than what I expected, because I didn't know what I've never had a restaurant, never wished to have one. Um, so for me to have been able to maintain this business, of course, with the help of managers and friends that helped me when I don't know anything, but learning a whole new industry,
Yeah.
that I never knew about. And at the same time, in the process, I was able to do me, like Maricel said.
Yeah, be authentic. You're authentic. You weren't trying to be
Yeah,
in the industry and
because
do what other people do.
I gotta bring the hip hop into it.
Got to.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was like the first thing I was like thinking, oh, where's the DJ booth gonna be? Before the menu, I had no idea. The menu was the very last thing.
Really?
So basically, I'm thinking parties, I'm thinking ambiance, sound system. I didn't want to think about the kitchen. That was the very last thing when, under pressure, I had to come up with a menu. But before that, before I decided on Colombian and Korean, I went through thinking burgers, all kinds of random things. So the Colombian Korean thing, people are like, whoa, that's genius. How did you think of that? But I'm like, I was under pressure and people had money on me. So
that's crazy because I thought that was like from jump. You were like, oh yeah, Korean, Colombian. It's no brainer.
No, it was when my sister was yelling at me. Like she was actually like really mad at me. She was really mad at me. So we're having an argument basically. And me fighting back, I was like, you know what? Let's do Colombian and Korean. Okay, that's our favorite foods. And then she was like, okay, fine. Do what you want. That sounds good. So it was like something I said during an argument that made sense. You know what I mean? That made sense. And then I started thinking deeper, like, wow, this is actually what we grew up eating. We grew up eating Colombian food and trying to make our mom make Colombian food for us, which she always failed. So her attempts at Colombian food were Korean Colombian food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it made sense in the end, and even the name Escala, the first 2-3 weeks we opened, I still had no name.
Oh.
We had customers coming in asking, so what's the name of this place? So like, I don't have a name yet. Escala was also under pressure.
You work well under pressure, Chino? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. Yeah, so Escala was when my mom called me, and we only, growing up here, we would see my mom during her layovers when she was traveling in Korea all the time. She would, she would run merchandise, like clothing, things like that from Korea to Colombia. That was her business, so she would go to Korea a lot. So she would call us and say, oh, tengo escala en Los Angeles, meaning I have a layover in LA. So when she called me while I was working on Escala, and she said, oh, tengo escala, that's when I said, oh, that word kind of sounds cool. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, so that's how everything kind of clicked into place. The logo, I didn't have any logo. So people were like, where's the logo? They knew I do logos. So where's the logo? Where's the logo? So I used to do that little character as a graffiti character.
Yeah.
So I just did my little graffiti character and cleaned it up, and that became the logo.
It's
so
all
everything
perfect.
just kind of fell into place, but nothing was planned. Nothing was really planned.
It wasn't planned, but it all worked out, and it's all authentic. And I think that's why it fits. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's just like, you're not faking the funk. It's all authentic, and you feel the vibe there. Like, it's like someone that loves, the people you brought in to DJ, and I'm telling you, I've been one when you guys post, or B Kim's always like posting because he goes to your shit no matter what, and he's always posting food all the time. It's killing me. It's killing us out here because in Palm Springs we don't got the good over here, and so like I was like, oh, I can't wait to go back to Escala because I like my favorite thing. People coming into town. And they're like, oh, where will she eat? And I was like, oh, go to Escala. Or I want to take them to Escala. And because I want to show them that, what's it called? That plank?
Oh yeah, the picada.
Oh my God. It's
Yeah.
like this gorgeous wooden plank and it has like the mixture of both and just all these meats and it's just so good. And there's a lot of good memories there. You were awesome enough to like let us do that thing for the Ladies Love Project, you know, and then the first time Chaz and Christina came and they came with that the Japanese Chola girl. Oh yeah. And that was for that that thing that Raka put together, helped put together and Alice and stuff, they were part of that. And
the Marley
yeah.
the Marley show, yeah.
And then
So that's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
those are things that's why I was saying I didn't expect it to be more than what you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful, you know, for all those things, because it's like now I can look at the place like almost like a creative open space for somebody, right? Like even we got chef pop-ups, we got DJs, we got people performing, we have live art, and you know, so it's like anybody that can use the space for something, you know, if it makes sense, you know, I like for that to happen, you know. And
it's like it's like a physical kind of manifestation of like all different parts of your life.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is that people get it, like as weird as it is, you know, like it seems like people get it, you know, like you get hip hop people that come in there and eat Colombian food, Korean, you know what I'm saying? That you know, which has something, it has nothing to do with their world maybe, but they still love the food. And then you got Colombians that come over there during a Sunday brunch when the hip hop music is popping and girls are twerking and but they enjoy that atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a crazy mixture of people that I never thought would mix, but it works. But somehow, because it's, you know, I think the people that come to Escala like just want to have a good time, you know, and I love the sound of them having a good time, you know, when you hear people yelling because they're having a good time, it's a beautiful noise, you know.
Yeah, it's like a cultural exchange or something, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you come in from one thing, you get to experience all these other things. Like it's really
I've
great.
seen the most beautiful things, you know. I've seen like the nerdy Koreans that are at the table, and you see the black girls that are like, well, come on, get up. They pull them out, and next thing you know, they're dancing, grinding on each other, and different worlds, you know what I'm saying?
Colliding, coming together. Because that's what you are as a person. Like, do you know what I'm saying? You're like, everyone's multidimensional and all this shit, but you are crazy, like so many things. And that's why I was so excited. I was like, when I first thinking like, who are my guests that I want to have like this first year of this podcast? Because it's about, you know, people I know and love that are part of, that are familia in one way or another, whether they know it or not. And I was like, I have to have OG Chino on here because your story is so crazy, but it's also in a weird way like universal, because, you know, I talk about like the non-linear career path. And if you're a creative, you're just a creative, and it can just, you bobbed and weaved into so many different, you know, industries and career paths. And I feel like it just goes to show that, you know, you do well under pressure. Because if people don't understand that are listening to this, most people that are listening to this probably understand, but a lot of people don't. To be a tour manager, that's under pressure. Like, you know what I'm saying? To be responsible for a bunch of grown-ass motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah. It's like, you know, exactly. Babysitting men,
on another level. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, that all makes sense because, you know, you going into the food, you know, to the restaurant industry. That's like a crazy industry where the statistics say like a certain huge percent of businesses failed their first year. And here you are still thriving, still surviving after a pandemic and shit. I mean, I think that speaks volumes. And, you know, so many people I've talked to are excited for when they can go back to LA, or it can be safer and it could be like full blown how it used to be, especially which I've never been to, but I've always wanted to, is your brunches. That's when it seems like they go off. With you open the wall, the wall panels, and it's like on the tables twerking and like line dancing, and it looks amazing. So I'm excited for that shit.
Yeah, we can't wait either. And
I bet.
no, again, like thanks to everybody, like the people that just come with Escala, I'm just so thankful to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times I feel like bad, when someone comes to Escala, like I feel like, why'd you come here? Like, now I feel like, I feel like I gotta do something for you.
Oh man.
No, but I'm seriously, like I really care about the people that come there and appreciate that they come there.
Yeah. Okay, so let me continue with, there's a couple more questions, comments from the audience. Next one. Are there any Colombian artists, visual or musical, that we should be checking for? And that's another question from Raka.
Visual, definitely. One of my favorite artists, Stinkfish from Bogota.
Okay.
Stinkfish, like stink and then fish.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can look for him on Instagram or whatever. But yeah, his, not only is he like a graffiti king in Bogota, but his art beautiful. You know what I mean? And a lot of what I love about it is like very inspirational to kids. He does a lot of kids portraits, and does these patterns that radiate out of their faces, almost like some kind of energy, and when you're in Bogota, you always see kids either taking pictures in front of one of those, or they're really like looking at one of those. I think that's what he means to do. So that's why I love his art that much. Like, I think he touches a lot of the young kids in Bogota. Franco is from the same crew, APC.
Dope.
APC stands for Animal Power Crew. But anyway, so that's the, and I'm not just shouting them out because that's the crew that kind of invites me to paint with them, and they consider me part of that crew. I'm not just shouting them out because of that, because I was really fans of them before I even got to know them. Besides that, it's just so many, like especially on visual arts. I think that Colombia is just killing it. The art scene in Medellin is crazy. I think pretty soon the world's gonna start seeing it. The problem is that sucks for Colombia is that the government's so tough on them as far as getting out of the country. Getting visas to go anywhere is really tough. So they're famous in Colombia, but it's kind of hard to, kind of get outside of that.
To go to do like a powwow or like something else where they can because they have internet, but it's not the same as like a piece, a physical piece where people always pass by and be like, oh, who's that and stuff. What I do for this, I'm going to have all the stuff you talk about in the show notes. So I will put their handles in the show notes so that everyone has access to that. Let's see. The next one, the final one. Let me see here. Mm-hmm. From Raka. OG Chino's family, that's my brother. He's one of the most solid people I know, and I have nothing but love and respect for him as a creative and an entrepreneur. I'm sure there'll be a movie about his life one day. So on that note, who's got the rights to your life? Have you optioned it? Where are we at in that process? And if you're not anywhere, when are you going to start, Chino? We need this.
Well, it's funny because I've always been thinking about writing my memoirs, and I actually have started because a lady who I consider my second mom, aside from my sister being my second mom, a lady named Elaine Kim, first put my life story in a book back in '94. It's called East to America, and it was 38 Korean American life stories.
Ooh. But
little did I know that book was required reading in Asian American studies programs in a lot of universities.
Oh.
Later I found out that Elaine Kim herself is the authority of Asian American studies, and super, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
In the literacy world, she's super known. So it's an honor to know her and call her a friend. But after that book, I got to do a lot of readings at different universities and things like that. And then that's when I started realizing that, yeah, like, wow, people actually want to hear this. They like the story. And Elaine has always pushed me to write my memoirs and stuff. So I work on it,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes, and then I've enjoyed writing. I like writing. Like even when I was a kid, at school, I was always the best writer in my class. And, so when I do get to writing, I like writing. So, but it takes a lot of inspiration before I get to like write something. But I don't know. That's something that I work on, and I think it's more for myself. Just
Yeah.
like for me, like when I think about certain memories, I want to write them down, and I write them in order. So it is like a memoir,
In English or in
but
Spanish? What are you writing
in
in?
English. I write in English. But as far as like, I had never really thought about like, okay, this is gonna be a book and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it gets to that, great. But for now, it's just kind of like I don't want to forget things,
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when I have a few drinks, I start thinking of things. Like, oh, I can't forget this one.
So something started,
But
and
it
we'll
would be
see what
cool. It
happens.
would be cool. It would be cool. I mean, if and of course, I'm not gonna be mad at that. If someone says, "Hey, like I want to do a movie about your story," I'm not gonna be mad at that. Of course, it'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But it has to be the right. Don't let it go into the wrong hands. I
Yeah.
don't think you will do that. But I'm just putting
Yeah.
out
'Cause,
there that
yeah.
in the ether, like it has to be with the right people, with the right company that has the budget, because you got to have the real music in your story.
The real
It has to be
news.
the real fucking
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
you would
that's
want
true.
anything
That's
less.
true. I don't want it to be like an after school special.
No, exactly. Or a Lifetime movie. No. We need like the real bread to get the real songs,
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
it has to be visually stunning. I mean, because if you think about it, to tell your story, all the locations you're going to be at, the potential,
Yeah.
like, I mean, you could condense the story to fit into the format. It could be a series, or, so you could really get into the nitty gritty, maybe like a limited series or a movie. But like the locations on just the visuals alone, like being in Colombia, like recreating those
Yeah.
Cholo years, of LA and the fashion. I'm just like, I want you to do it now, but you'll do it when you do it. But I can't wait to see it. Like, I think people need to know, we're right now we're in that golden age of where everyone's looking for, unique stories of, Black people of color, indigenous, and I feel
Yeah.
like this is that plus next level, because your story is so unique and it intersects so many different areas,
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, man, get that done, or get with someone dope, or someone listens to this, or
Hey.
and is excited about it, and because there's articles and stuff, but like a culmination of all that plus your own history and stories that you want to tell, I think it would be amazing. Okay, let's get into, since we're limited on time, let's get into a few, not all of them, but the not so rapid fire questions, the AKA slow as hell questions. I'm going to do just a couple and not the whole list. First one, 3 words to describe yourself.
Wow. Me, myself, and I don't know.
There it is. Me, myself, and I. Good one. That's the quickest I ever got it. You've lived multiple lives already, and you still have so much more to live. What's the best piece of advice you've received so far?
Best piece of advice I've received so far?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my mom's advice. Don't get into any confrontations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to just walk away.
Yeah. That's solid advice because there's a lot of people that don't know how to
And
do
Joey
that.
said, don't ever do anybody wrong. Always do right.
That's real. Because karma's a bitch and she's ready. She's ready. This one is very important. I ask everyone this one, but I for sure couldn't skip it with you. What song what's your go-to song to get you hyped, like when you need it, when you need that boost?
Probably my favorite song ever, which is Knee Deep, Funkadelic. And it's 15 minutes long, so there's like a lot of hype time.
Yeah. So you being a fan, and you mentioned it before, that before hip hop, you're listening to a lot of, funk and, Parliament and stuff like that. So I already had Man One on here, and he tells a story about how Overton Lloyd calls him at 4:00 in the morning to go paint Slice Stone's RV with George Clinton in LA. So he tells that story, right? And I've asked Overton, because Overton, Manuel, and Gustavo and I, we would paint live all the time. We were like in this live painting group back when I first started. So Overton's a good friend. And I was like, Overton, I miss you. Come on this. You have mad stories. I want you to come on here. And he was like, well, no. He said he gets like a little nervous. I go, it's not live. Like, it's recorded. So I just wanted to, you would love that, right? Like, we would all love to hear those stories. So Overton, if you're listening again, someone gave you bad advice that you have to only come on when you have something to promote. It doesn't matter. Your history, you're a living legend. You need to come on here and tell your stories. Before we leave, I wanted to say one of my favorite memories. People might not know that you and Raka have the same birthday.
Yeah, same birthday.
June 18th. And so we had the Supernatural Bear. So we hadn't done gone out, just us two in a while. It'd been a couple of years that he was like 3 or something. We were still living in LA. So we're like, this is when Roy Choi was at the Line Hotel. So he hooked us up with the room. We were like, okay, we'll have dinner, blah, blah, blah. And it was for his birthday. I think it was on his birthday, maybe. And then I think something was happening with Tristan some event was happening too at the same time. And Ginger Snappers, aka Shane Jessup, was like, are you guys doing something for a rocket? I was like, nah, we're just here. Like, we may go downstairs. I think someone was spinning at the line, how it was happening all the time. And we're like, I think we'll just somehow it just all aligned. Do you remember that? And it was your birthday, Raka's birthday. And we just all it was like Alice, Shane, me, Raka, like a bunch of people. And Tristan, and we all just went to Escala, and then you shut the doors, and we were just celebrating your birthday.
Yeah, I remember that. That's probably thanks to Alice. She's always banging on the door when we're closing.
Shout out to Alice. Yeah, that was a great night. It was just those nights when it's just not unplanned, and it just happens, and we just ended up, and then we were able to celebrate both your birthdays.
Yeah.
It was just it's just good stuff, man. I love your energy. I love your story. Thank you so much for doing this, Chino.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys.
We love you, and I can't wait for shit to open up some more, and we'll definitely have to go and celebrate and have all the good food and just be with you and all the peeps, And it'd be great too, because I keep in touch with them just to check on them, but we haven't seen Chaz and Christina since they were here to visit one time before pre-pandemic. So it'd be great to, everybody just meet up at Escala and just, and stuff like that. So that would be great, man. Well, thank you so much, Chino. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on this.
And we need that story.
I feel more hype about getting my book done. I feel more hype.
Yeah, we need it. People are going to listen and be like, what the fuck? And also when I look up your pictures, because I love, do you have more? You probably have more than.
No, probably a couple more. I don't know. I gotta keep looking, but no. As far as I know, my homegirl Sad Eyes, rest in peace. She was the one that took most of those pictures. For some reason, she had a camera on her at all times during that era when no one, we didn't take cameras to school,
Yeah.
And so I regret not having a lot of those photographs, but I'm glad that those few do exist.
Because kids, listen, we didn't have phones, let alone cameras on our phones. And when we had to take pictures, you had to take them someplace to get developed. Like, it was a whole
You
fucking
had to
thing.
ask your mom for some money to get them things developed.
Exactly. It wasn't cheap. And there was a lot of involvement. So seeing those, they're just gold, man. Like, it's a certain era. And, just loving that culture, growing up in it too, and seeing pictures from that time, it's gold. So I'm going to look for some of them, repost some of those so they could see Chino.
Yeah, and I'm going to dig around and send you what I have.
Yeah, that would be dope. Yeah. All right then, Chino. Gracias. Muchísimas gracias.
All right. You guys stay safe in the Palm Springs.
You too. And safe travels back to Colombia. And we'll see you hopefully in a couple of months or something or so. We'll go and we'll see you. Or if you come out this way, we're here for you.
All right. I will go visit.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Gracias. Bye.
Ciao.
Have your kids been in a house playing video games in your space way too long? Now you can get them outdoors and still be social while social distancing at the skate side after school and group skateboarding classes. Skate students get to improve their skating and decompress after a long day or week of school. This program is awesome for beginners to get started or advanced skaters to take their skills to the next level. Go to theskateside.com and learn about our COVID-safe programs in Santa Monica, Culver City, Glendale, and South Pasadena. That's theskateside.com. The Skate Side. More kids skating.
And now, introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear. Hello, everyone. I am the Supernatural Bear on the SMB Corner, and today we're going to talk a little bit about my tío OG Chino. Yeah. So he was raised in Colombia, if you guys didn't know that, but you probably did, because in the interview part, although I didn't hear any of that. And he speaks better Espanol than the person who is right next to me right now, Ritzy P, or my mom. He speaks better than my mom. And he has like this Korean and Colombian type of restaurants, like a fusion kind of. You get what I mean if you've heard of Steven Universe. And it is found in Koreatown. So yeah, go check it out. Help him make a few bucks. And I've never tried his food before, but hopefully if I ever go to Koreatown, I will get to try his food. Yeah. That's pretty much all you need to know. Just like a quick origin story, a quick recap. Yeah, this has been the SMB, signing off.
Shooby-doo. Yeah. There it is, OG Chino. I told you it was going to be a crazy story. It was a crazy story. I can't wait. I hope he's like really into writing this, and I hope someone hears this. Or, I know he's been on a different podcast recently too. Just make this into a movie. We need this story. Just like I said, I want to see all the costumes, hear the real music, but especially the Cholo phase. Please check out our Instagram account, and I will be posting in between the episode announcement and the quotes posts that I do, I'll post some of his artwork, some of the food, probably, and especially, one or two of his Cholo days situation that his homegirl Sad Eyes took, R.I.P. Sad Eyes. So we'll definitely have that. I wanted to also say, if you're in the Los Angeles area, please make sure to go and support Escala in K-Town. I'll have a link to that for sure. And the thing we're talking about, the picada, you can get it for 4 people or for 6 people. I highly recommend this. It has Colombian chicharron, it has Korean BBQ short ribs, has Colombian chorizo, it has spiced chicken wings, plátanos, grilled onion, fresh pineapple, street corn, has Colombian native potatoes, has heirloom cherry tomatoes, and it has arepas. I mean, it's a smorgasbord of amazingness in your mouth. Plus everything else that they have. Good drinks and good vibes with the music being played, different DJs, all that stuff. So yeah, make sure you go to Escala in K-Town, LA. Also, thanks again for supporting this. There's different ways for you to support. Leave a review. That's free. You know what I'm saying? People can find out about this podcast by getting more and more reviews. So let's get to it. Let's add some more reviews on there. Also, you can donate directly. You could also do the Patreon, become a patron via Patreon. I'll have a link to that. We have stuff in the store. Enamel pen created by the Supernatural Bear. Enamel pens created by me. A lot of different ways to support. Let's, continue to support these diverse voices. And yeah, tell your peeps, tell your friends. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And once again, as always, we reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritz P. The intro is produced by Nico Beats. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by RitzyPeriwinkle.com and Panoply BPO